Oh, hello, friends. It's no big deal. Not a thing at all. Just, we're starting Volume 6 of Heaven Official's Blessing! Oh my god! Ah! Yes, I'm so excited. I was going to wait and start this later this weekend because Billy on my phone, I have the app for Billy for the comics, and Chapter 93 of the Manhua came out, or Chapter 92 came out, I guess 92 or 93, came out last week, and so I had been told by Discord that it was every other week, and I'm like, well, I'll be able to start Volume 6 then, and next weekend we'll have a chapter of the Manhua. And then on my phone it says that it was coming out this weekend, and I was like, why? There's even like a countdown, like it says 36 hours till the new chapter comes out, and I'm like, but it's not. And so I confirmed it on Discord, and they were like, no, it's every other weekend. So Billy, get your app together. Figure things out, please. But yes, we are going to start Volume 6 today. There are only 2 chapters, so we're going to start out. We're going to do like Tina Turner, rolling on the river, start out slow and steady, nice and easy. And then I'm sure this volume is going to get rough by the end of it. But yeah, we're only doing chapters 173 and 174 for Volume 6, which are pages 11 to 34. So like 20-ish, like 17 or 18 pages, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we just left off Volume 5 thinking that the presents creating the murals are within the walls. So, and this was a designated section, so I'm like, there is clearly a reason that there are only 2 chapters in this one section. So I don't know. This may not end up being a very long reaction and discussion for this week. Who knows? But we had so much happen in we've had a lot happen in the last several chapters going through this. Now, Volume 6 is the shortest volume so far of all the series, which I was a little disappointed about. I was like, I've enjoyed these giant volumes, and so when I saw Volume 6, I'm like, it's so little, and I'm like, has that new book smell? Yes, love it. But I was a little disappointed. I was like, it's such a thin volume compared to the last 2 that we've gone. But if MXTX has taught us anything, quality over quantity. Clearly, right? So I'm assuming, judging by the cover, I love this cover. This is maybe one of my favorite covers of the entire thing. Volume 4, I think, has my favorite cover. The Underwater Kiss is my favorite cover so far. This one is a close second. I love the idea. It looks like ashes because we're at the foot of Mount Tonglu at the kiln. There's the ashes around them. The idea of the red thread tying them together, and then Shilian hugging HUACHANG from behind. It reminds me of, if you've ever watched Bleach, it's an anime. There is a movie for Bleach where Orihime, who is the potential love interest of Ichigo, the main character, she because it's a shonen and they won't ever show you, like, the main character can never have a romantic interaction with the female lead. How dare. And in the movie, she is concerned about him, and because Ichigo's like, I don't want the affection, she comes up from behind him and does the same hug, and it's like, okay, that's our romantic equivalent. It feels very much the same here, as if if we're getting a hug from Shilian and Shilian initiating it, that says a lot, because so far in this series, Shilian, the last volume, has realized that he does like HUACHANG. There are feelings there, but he's trying to figure out, how do I show him these feelings, and what if they're not mutual? And we're all sitting here going, they're mutual. Just get on with it. But if this is something that happens in the book, which so far things in the cover have happened, although Volume 5, there was no braiding of the hair like on the Volume 5 cover, but there was the tying of the threads together, so maybe that was what it was referring to. If we get this in this volume, though, Romania will be a very happy fangirl, because it's been a long time coming, and for Shilian to initiate the contact is a big thing. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to look in and see what the insert. Ming's eye is front and center and on the side, so maybe we're gonna get some HUACHANG backstory. That'd be real good, because as we've had on Whiteboard Coon with the unresolved plot points, HUACHANG's origins, like how he became a supreme ghost, has not really been elaborated on. It's just been kind of hinted at and suggested, but we've not gotten concrete details. And for this story to give us such concrete details with its characters, it seems a little overdue, right? But yeah, Ming's there. I just want to look at that spread is so beautiful, and it's the red string of fate tying them together. I love it. And then I always like seeing the insert. Yeah, it's them overlooking a city. like on a date. It's so cute. I love that. Yes, yes. I have back there on the shelf, you can kind of see it, I have someone sent me, like, it has all the inserts, but they're all out of order, so I never know, like, which one's going to go for which volume, and so I like seeing, like, what it is. We have 2 more. There's 2 on there. I could, you know, get the volumes together and do logical reasoning, but I'm like, no, I want it to be a surprise. So, yeah. And I don't read the back covers because I don't want to be spoiled, obviously. But, yeah, I'm really excited for this volume. It's very short. There's only going to be 9 weeks with it. So I've done the math. I've calculated. On Discord, they send me the table of contents, but they've crossed out the titles so that I'm not spoiled by the titles of them, which is fun. So I know that there's going to be 9 weeks. We're going to do parts 55 through part 63 is going to be 9 weeks of volume 6. So basically like nearly a little over 2 months, which is not a long time. And then we'll be in volume 7, which is the penultimate volume. So I'm like, what is happening? It has become very clear starting this volume that we are entering the final legs of the journey, and it's surreal. It's weird. I've read this for a year now, and it's so bizarre. But I have a few comments before we start and dive into this volume proper. Kuroida Mashi, sorry for mispronouncing that. Kuroida Mashi actually noted that Yin Yu is taller than Shilian and Qi Ying, and I was like, wait, what? So, because in the manhwa, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, in the manhwa, they make Yin Yu look really short, especially in comparison to, in comparison to WuXiang, sure, but in comparison to Long Ying, they make him look really short, and I was like, so he's not very tall, which kind of goes along with the whole average thing. But apparently, I mean, I'm not surprised that he's taller than Qi Ying. Qi Ying's not very tall at all, but he's taller than Shilian. Interesting. They said that's at least what a Wikipedia search gave them. Now, Wikipedia's been known to have been wrong in the past, so maybe that's not correct. But I find that interesting. I think it's also hilarious the fact that nobody really knows or cares who he's taller than. I feel for Yin Yu. I really do. And then Anime Annie had some really good comments. The idea of HUACHANG and Shilian's differing opinions on Junwoo at this point. I feel like Shilian, I joked way back in the earlier volumes that Junwoo had like a crush on Shilian. Maybe he does, but it definitely does feel more paternal at this point. It feels more like, and everybody was kind of like Daddy Junwoo back when they first started. At the beginning of volume 5, I was kind of like, don't tell me if Daddy Junwoo like views him parentally or not, but it is kind of like that feeling now. I don't think Junwoo has a crush on Shilian. I don't think Shilian has a crush on Junwoo. It's literally like he respects Junwoo. But it's frustrating because as HUACHANG notes, he's like, he punished you. He put cursed shackles on you. Why do you still like him? And HUACHANG is very possessive and very jealous and is just like, He doesn't tell Shilian who to be friends with and not be friends with, but you can tell that HUACHANG is like, I want Gege all to myself. I don't want anybody to have any feelings for Gege. And it's funny because I feel like HUACHANG does not view the Windmaster as any threat, or Pei Ming, or Qi Ying, or any of them, because he knows they have no romantic feelings towards Shilian. But the fact that he's wary of Junwoo, one, I think he's mostly wary because of how Junwoo has treated Shilian, and he doesn't like it. But two, because there is a little bit of a, well, what if? You know, kind of on HUACHANG's part. So I thought that was really interesting. But meanwhile, Shilian's like, let's all just be friends. And HUACHANG's like, yes, let's be friends. So, Anime Annie pointed this out. Nobody else pointed it out, but I completely missed the mark 2 weeks ago when we had Chi-Rong meeting up with Shanji, and I was like, wow, what a crazy combination. I never would have imagined Shanji and Chi-Rong, and Anime Annie was like, well, they were kind of associated with one another in volume 1, and I was like, oh my gosh. It's been a year since I've read volume 1. I forgot that Shanji hanging the corpses in the forest, that Pei Ming speculates that it was because she had the association with Chi-Rong, that she got herself to the level of a savage and had gotten that power was from associating themselves with Chi-Rong. So maybe I forgot because it was never confirmed, just highly suggested. But now seeing them together in volume 5, I'm like, oh yeah, no, their relationship and the fact they teamed up together makes total sense. They've been at it since volume 1, and I'm like, who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? We didn't see them with screen time together, so this is the first time seeing them actually collaborating with one another face to face. But yeah, crazy, like stuff from volume 1 just tackling back on. Who knew? Shanji keeping herself like that physically. I wondered a few weeks ago why Shanji would physically keep her legs broken. If she's a ghost, she could fix them. And Anime Annie pointed out that it's probably because of Pei Ming. It's on two fronts. One, it's the idea that she can gain pity from Pei Ming, being like, oh, look at the sorry state that I'm in because of you. And then it's also to guilt him, being like, this is all your fault, and blah, blah, blah. So she only does it to herself. It's just like, just self-harm. She just is hurting herself over and over again over this guy that's literally a man whore. But maybe he'll change his ways with the Rain Master. Or maybe the Rain Master doesn't care. It would be the ultimate irony and the ultimate cruelty to Pei Ming if he did develop feelings for the Rain Master, but she's a lesbian. she's like, that's cool and all, Pei Ming, but I kind of, don't like you like that. And he's like the ultimate, it would be the ultimate cruelty if MXTX had Pei Ming develop a genuine, authentic love of someone that he's ready to commit to, and then she's like, no. I would laugh so hard, but I also feel so bad for him because unrequited love is never fun. So we should never joke about unrequited love because it sucks. But Pei Ming was the pincushion of Volume 5. Everything bad that could happen to him happened. And I was telling Anime Annie in the comments that I feel like it was his comeuppance. Like with Shanji, everything that I had beef against him in Volume 1, I was like, why is he mean to Banyu? Why is he being this way to Shanji? And isn't he just a man whore? And like all this. It's funny because you develop this liking of General Pei because you realize he's just this big himbo-y goof that is a womanizer but does have a heart. But it seems like all of those things I had issues with him in Volume 1, he gets karma for in Volume 5. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. So I feel like he's had justice served to him. It's fine now. We can go on. But yeah, it's just really, really funny. And then, yeah, the idea of unconditional love changing Qirong. We talked about this. This is my last comment before we start the volume proper. But Anime Annie was talking about how Guzi has this unconditional love to their father. And in this case, Qirong is in the body of his father, so it kind of inadvertently goes to him. And there's this idea that, in the weirdest sense, the unconditional love that Guzi is giving Qirong is changing him. Subtly, slowly, but it's noticeable. Like Qirong in Volume 2, he would have just been eating people's body parts and not cared. And he would have killed Guzi and not cared. And we talked about how I wondered in the last reaction or two if it was him being in the dad's body, that the dad's unconditional love for Guzi was just leaking into Qirong's system, like altering his, entire DNA code. But no, I think it's just the act of unconditional love. The idea that Qirong now not only is trying to hide his cannibalism from his son because he wants to make a somewhat good impression, but the fact that he's not killing Guzi. And I think Shanji was onto something. She's like, you're not going to kill him. And he's like, oh, I am, but no. And the fact that he does show concern for Guzi. It's like that unconditional love is altering him. And it immediately made me think of HEADPHONE. HEADPHONE's unconditional love with Shi Lian and Shi Lian's unconditional love of him back in Volumes 2 and 3. It changed who he was as a person. And so then it got me thinking, I'm like, well, there's Heshan. Heshan has been surrounded by this unconditional love by the Wind Master towards the Earth Master, even though Heshan and Qirong are probably the most common in the same boat. You have Qirong who, by impersonating Guzi's father, is experiencing this unconditional love that is in fact changing him in real time. And then you had Heshan who is impersonating the Earth Master, and by being with the unconditional love of the Wind Master, it's changed him possibly over time. Now, we haven't seen Heshan in forever, so we have no idea if Heshan is changed in any way, but I think he kind of is. And so it's funny that you have Qirong and Heshan with these similarities and how unconditional love has changed them. I think that conversely, you have HEADPHONE, who has always had this unconditional love with Shi Lian, and it's altered him from the get-go. So does that mean with Bai WuXiang, he's had no love, and that's why he is the way that he is? Bai WuXiang just needs a hug, y'all. That would have solved everything. Shi Lian should have just hugged Bai WuXiang and gave him some love instead of being scared of him, and then we wouldn't have what we're dealing with. No, I doubt it's clearly more complicated than that. But I thought that was really, really interesting. So So thank you all so much for the comments. There's been a lot of comments over the past few weeks, and I've loved reading them. But those are the only two that Anime Annie and Kuroda, their comments, I was like, oh, those stand out. We need to talk about them before we dive into this new volume and get on with it. And I've talked for 15 minutes, but I don't know what's going to happen, y'all. But I'm not getting my hopes up that we're going to get answers, because it's the start of the volume, first of all. And then I'm like, they're either not going to find out who the source of the murals are, they're going to run away and escape, but they might find something else out instead, or they are going to find out the identity, and then it's going to be a damn cliffhanger. So, I'm not getting my hopes up, but we have to start somewhere, right? First chapters of the volume. Yay. So yeah, let's not waste any more time. We're going to dive in and just see what we get. And we're going to start Volume 6 of Heaven Official's Blessing, Chapters 173 and 174. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Chapter 173, The Cave of 10,000 Gods. Faces of 10,000 Gods Hidden. Okay. I love that we start out with HUACHANG's breath was warm, but his words made one's heart go cold. Oh, MXTX, poetry! Sheer poetry! Hiding in the Grand Hall. Okay. And Shilian instantly hugged HUACHANG back. Oh, you just give me all the physical contact, the touch-starvedness. We need to cure that. Of course he wasn't hugging him because he was afraid. If there really was someone hiding there and they hadn't noticed, then it meant it was someone powerful. If that person should not notice anything off, they might be forced to make a move. It was only HUACHANG hugging him, being so intimate, then it would easily arouse suspicion. If both of them were embracing each other, it might appear more normal. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, Shilian, just like, well, if HUACHANG just hugs me and I don't do anything, it'll be suspicious, so I'm gonna hug him back to not be... Just shut up! I bet you love each other already. Where do you think that person is? There was only one giant door to the Grand Hall, and that was where they had entered. It was completely empty within the hall, so there's only one way in. Nothing was out of place, not even a stage or a box for hiding. There were only temple attendants that were turned into stone. The shells. The insides of the stone people were hollow, which meant they served as hiding spots. Oh, that's creepy! Humans couldn't hide there, but ghosts certainly could. Oh, that is creepy, like hiding in the corpse shells. Ew, MXTX, ew! Okay, he sensed something and looked up. He saw a stone person 6 meters behind HUACHANG, and his pupils shrank. That seemed to have been a young man who had a higher status, who had been fairly calm. Since what these stone statues recorded were the deaths of the WuXiang people, most were hugging their heads or wailing and curled into balls, and this one was one of the very few that were standing. But what made Shilian notice wasn't his pose, his face. Although the face was blurry, he could still see the face of the stone person. The left side was a crescent smile, and the right side was a crying face. Oh my god! Woo! Oh, that's Bai WuXiang's mark! Oh my god, it's that one! Oh, then he pulled out a sword and struck as HUACHANG called out, Gege! The stone person was slashed into pieces, leaving broken fragments of the shell all over the floor. But there was nothing inside. Shilian didn't dare to let it slide and turned over every piece of the shards, and HUACHANG caught his hand. He's like, Gege, what did you see just now? He picked up and showed him a few of the fragments along the stone person. His face was the white no-face's mask. He said, wait a moment. They gathered the pieces together, reconstructed the complete face, and when the two looked, they were silent. Just now, what Shilian had seen was clearly a half-crying, half-smiling demon mask. But the head that HUACHANG put together was simply a blurred face, not unlike the other stone statues. Oh no! Oh my god! Oh no, no, no! Okay. Was it a hallucination, or did he fall for an illusionment spell? Oh no! I'm not ready for answers! Never mind! We gotta go back! Nope, I'm not ready for volume 6. Let's turn around! Let's turn around, let's go back! I'm not ready! I'm not ready! No! No! We gotta keep going though! We gotta keep going! Sitting around wouldn't get them answers, and the two searched all over the hall. But did they mess it up? Did whatever cause it leave? Did he just... smashing every stone person? After some thought, they felt that perhaps someone had rushed to climb the mountain before them. They decided not to stick around and wait for Pei Ming, and instead went straight towards the summit. Yeah, Pei Ming will get back whenever. The mountain body of the kiln seemed to have a peculiar gravity. grounding them and forbidding them from keeping light on their feet to fly. Oh, thus they could only climb by foot. Well, that is a convenient limitation. The higher they hiked, the steeper the path became, and the colder the air grew. So they're just going to leave the murals behind? First, it was a thin layer of snow. Then, as they went up, the snow became thicker and could almost swallow half of a boot. After 4 hours, the accumulated snow finally went past their knees, making climbing more and more arduous. Oh my God, so it's just getting snowier and snowier. You guys need to find a cave to hide in. Since they were walking nonstop, Shilian didn't feel the cold and was instead covered with a thin sheen of sweat, his face powdery white with red cheeks. Oh, don't let him get sick. Well, can he get sick? He wiped away the sweat with the back of his hand and looked back, and was about to talk to HuaChang when suddenly his step fell hollow and his entire person dropped short by 2 feet. Oh! His body sank into the heavy snow, and thankfully HuaChang had been following close behind and quite naturally pulled him up. Gege, be careful. Shilian stood next to him and looked back to where he sank. A large chunk of that spot had caved in, revealing a deep, dark hole leading to who knows where. If Shilian didn't grab the edge in time, or if HuaChang had moved too slow, then he would have fallen in for sure. HuaChang added, there are many hollow ditches in this area. I still remember their general locations, so just follow close to me. This photographic memory, I tell you. Take your time and it'll be fine. Gege walked too fast just now. So it turns out the body of the mountain beneath the snow was quite weak. There were large and small holes everywhere. Just how many and how deep was unknown. However, HuaChang actually remembered where they all were as they climbed. He said, all right, let's stick close together. We can't yell or make loud noises on a snowy mountain anyway, so if anything happens, it wouldn't be easy to call for help. Yet unexpectedly, just as the words left his mouth, angry roars came up from her head. Are you done? Which good brother dared to yell like this on such a steep and perilous snowy mountain? What? Shilian looked towards the sound, feeling dumbfounded. He saw that within the world covered with snow, there were 2 little black dots currently in a brawl. One of them held a longbow, shooting arrows nonstop. The other held a saber, swinging like a tiger, striking down every single arrow. Is it Lan Chunshu? What? Both the blade and the arrows had a sheen of spiritual light. Both parties were cursing at the others, and the man holding the blade yelled, I already said that little bastard wasn't killed by me. I'm looking for them too. It was Nan Feng and Fu Yao. Well, of course. So Fu Yao, who we think is WuXiang, but Nan Feng is there. Okay. All right. I said the little bastard wasn't killed by me. I'm looking for them too. So Fu Yao is talking about the fetus spirit and Zhan Lan, right? Without going into why, well, it makes sense. Nan Feng was sent by Feng Shen to go find them as well. Okay. Without going into why they were here too, Shilian was about to blurt out, "Shut up!" But then he reacted in time and swallowed it before he yelled too. If he roared the same way they did and the 3 men screamed at each other, how could all the snow in the mountains still be bound? Oh my God, all paths are bound. All snow is bound. Right? HuaChang hugged his arms and cocked an eyebrow. Don't they know that yelling on a snowy mountain will cause an avalanche? Well, you would think. They can't be that foolish. Maybe they know, but they're like that when they're angry. They can't stop caring. They stop caring for anything. Yeah, they're just like 2 stags, like locked in an epic battle, right? Till Judgment Day and trumpets sound. Nan Feng and Fu Yao were both extremely pissed off, cursing while fighting, but because they were too far away, their words were broken, and what they were fighting over couldn't be heard, and they completely did not notice there were others who had come. I mean, it's probably about the fetus spirit that they're looking for them, right? Shilian wanted to rush up and pull them apart, but with the heavy snow dragging down his pace and the deep holes under, there was no way he could quickly make it there to stop them. Shilian ran for 2 steps before he stepped into another hole and he stopped. We can't just let them keep fighting like this. Just as he said so, a silver butterfly flew by like a sharp arrow. Shilian was startled at first, but soon after he relaxed. He's like, good idea! If neither of them can make it there in time, why not just let a wraith butterfly fly up and pass word first? I don't think that the butterfly is going to just pass word. I think HuaChang's going to be like, like just beat them senseless. Like, shut up. I don't think it's going to be that, I don't think it's going to be that nice, right? The silver butterfly's speed was extremely fast as expected, and it only took 3 shouts before it made it to the other side. However, before Shilian tried to pass word, he saw HuaChang's expression grew cold. He noticed something was wrong and asked, what's wrong? The smile on HuaChang's lips had disappeared completely, replaced by a face that was as frigid as the snowy mountain. San Long, what is going on? His lips twitched and didn't answer before Shilian suddenly felt panic for some reason. He whipped his head around to look at the top, his eyes widening. Up ahead, by the snowy bluffs, a giant chunk of white mountain body trembled and collapsed. On the other end, Nan Feng and Fu Yao, who were in the heat of the fight, also sensed the soundless pressure. They both looked up and finally noticed what was about to happen. I don't think HEADPHONE was reacting to the avalanche. I think he heard something that they said and was like, The next moment, the mountain mass was like a 1,000-mile embankment. When it broke completely, carrying with it a wave of snow tsunami, rumbling and rolling as it pushed down towards them. They really caused an avalanche. Shilian grabbed HEADPHONE's hand and turned and ran. But after making it his first couple steps, he remembered that the two further up were much closer to the charging avalanche and stopped his steps abruptly, looking back. Sure enough, the other two had ceased fire to flee together. Fu Yao didn't run for very far before stepping into a hole, half his body sunken and snow buried over his chest. Nan Feng ran faster than him, but also looked back, hesitating for a moment, seeming to want to save him. But the wave of snow had already attacked. The moment right before they were going to be swallowed, Shilian released Ruyi. The white silk bandage leapt out into the distance and took no time to accurately loop around Fu Yao and Nan Feng, yanking them up. HEADPHONE said darkly, "Gege, leave them, don't bother." Shilian held onto Ruyi tightly, dragging the two as he ran. "Well, I can't. They might fall into a hole and get buried by snow." "Well, too late." "What? So fast?" He looked up in the overbearing shadow and came crashing down overhead. When Shilian turned to save Nan Feng and Fu Yao, that moment he delayed allowed the wave of snow to swallow him whole. The cold and heavy wave of snow surged without rest, breaking him and HEADPHONE apart. Shilian was falling over from all the force, tumbling down with the white wave, but he still managed to keep struggling somehow. However, there was too much snow and the surge was too powerful, and the time and time again covered over Shilian's head, bringing a series of sudden suffocations. In the end, Shilian shouted, "San Long!" unable to hang on, and was buried down after all, disappearing with the icy snow current. An unknown amount of time had passed before the snowy mountain was finally calmed. A good moment later, in the field of flattened snow, a hand suddenly burst out. This hand felt all around the snow, and then an arm poked out, and then a shoulder, and then finally a head. Soon after, a person crawled out. They shook his head and heaved a long sigh. It was Shilian. To forcibly dig himself out of that heavy layer of accumulated snow felt about the same as digging himself out of a grave. Shilian's face and hands were all red from frostbite, pretty much numb. He only rubbed his face a couple times before looking up, looking lost. In the blanket of whiteness, there was not a trace of red, which seems all the more sinister because we've had the white no face mentioned, and then all of this. But Shilian just couldn't randomly yell either. If he caused another avalanche, then everything would be over. He could only rise to his feet, walking aimlessly alone in the snowy world, and called out in a small voice, "San Long, Nan Feng, Fu Yao." He was clearly going in the same direction they were going before, but now it seemed much colder than when he and HEADPHONE walked together. Oh, come on, just MXTX. Ruyi was also unwrapped from his hand. Shilian was puzzled. Ruyi should not be unwrapped. Even if you let go, Ruyi would still bind himself to him, so what happened? He suddenly knew something was wrong, but couldn't tell what, and continued walking in a daze. Suddenly, from within the snowy winds ahead, someone had emerged. White robes, black hair, his sleeves flapping in the wind as he walked over with his head down. Seeing this traveler, Shilian was delighted and went forward. "My friend, you!" But just as those words left his lips, the man looked up. On his face was the white and chilling mask, half of it smiling and the other half crying. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh no, no, no! No, no, nope, is that, no! Oh!" It was like someone had stabbed him with a blade, and Shilian screamed. After he screamed, he opened his eyes and shot up. "Oh my God, you did a dream fake out, MXTX? What?" After he screamed, he opened his eyes and shot up. It was only after taking in some harsh breaths before he shakenly noticed that at the moment, he wasn't walking in the snowy mountain at all, but was lying in a dark, shadowy place. So it was a dream. Oh, so him not having Ruyi, okay, was part of the dream, and so that shouldn't have happened. Oh my God, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Oh, well, what? MXTX, why? No wonder. Something always felt off in dreams, and Shilian exhaled a long breath as he relaxed, wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. I don't like where this is headed. After feeling things about for a bit, he found out what beneath him were the rocks covered in a blanket of grass. Feng Shen hung at his waist, and Ruyi was clearly wrapped around his arm. Shilian steadied himself and ignited a palm torch, illuminating the place he was sitting in, calling out at first moment, "Sanlong, are you there?" Yet unexpectedly, the moment the flames brightened the place, he instantly noticed that right next to him in the darkness, there stood another person, soundless and silent. This was no small surprise, and Shilian was instantly covered in sweat, his hand on Feng Shen immediately. That someone should be standing at such a close distance to him, there was no way he couldn't have noticed. However, when he looked closer, the cold sweat went away. It wasn't alive, but a stone statue. And it wasn't the same as the stone statues of the victims fallen in the volcano eruption. This was clearly a sculpture, and it was that of a divine statue. With the palm torch in hand, Shilian went around once and verified the place he laid was a cavern. Within this cavern, a divine statue was erected and worshipped, its pose elegant, the folds of its robes flowing, and lines were all sculpted exquisitely. But something was peculiar. The face of this divine statue was covered by a light veil. The light veil flowed like a mist. While it quite strangely covered the face of the divine statue, it wasn't ugly. Instead, it added a mysterious beauty. But Shilian had never seen a heavenly official whose statues had faces covered. He reached out unconsciously to pull that veil off when a voice came from behind Gege. Shilian whipped around and saw at the entrance of the cavern was a figure in red who had appeared out of nowhere, and it was HEADPHONE. The face of the divine statue was instantly tossed to the back of the mind, and he rushed up. "Oh, well, I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence. Sanlong, thank goodness. I was just wondering where you were. Are you all right? Are you hurt? The avalanche just now was too sudden." "I'm fine. How's Gege?" "Nothing is ever the matter with me," Shilian said. "Oh, what is this place?" After exiting the cavern, Shilian noticed there was a long corridor outside. It didn't seem short, and who knows where it led. It seemed this was a fairly large underground space. Shilian was already used to WuXiang having the answers to everything, and yet this time, WuXiang replied, "I don't know. Most likely under the snowy mountain." And here I thought that it was a shelter Sanlong had found. "I can't believe not even you know where this is." "No," WuXiang said. Well, this was a first. I don't like this at all. Nope. WuXiang had memorized where every ditch was on the mountain path, but he didn't know what this place was. This cave wasn't small either. Had he never discovered it before? Shilian couldn't help but feel a little perplexed, but he didn't press on and instead raised his palm torch higher. How did we get here? WuXiang also summoned a few butterflies, letting them flutter about with faint light, and replied softly, "Maybe we all made a misstep and fell through a ditch. It can't have been someone who put us here intentionally." Hearing him say so, Shilian couldn't help but recall the dream he had just now, and a slight chill went down his spine. I don't like this at all! No! Recalling another thing, he said, "Well, we're here, but then where's Nan Feng and Fu Yao?" WuXiang replied unsympathetically, "Probably buried in the snow. Who cares? They're heavenly officials. This won't kill them." They said something, and WuXiang's reacted to it. They've said something. Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Well, even if this won't kill them, if no one can help dig them out, it doesn't feel great to be buried in the snow for a few decades. Maybe they've fallen in here too. Well, let's search for them. By the way, Sanlong, when your silver butterfly went forward earlier, what did you hear them say? WuXiang snickered. "Just some meaningless arguments. What else can it be?" Well, that answer, Shilian didn't think that was simple. It was that simple. Otherwise, WuXiang's sudden exchange of expression when the wraith butterfly flew over couldn't be explained. Yes, even now, while WuXiang was snickering, his eyes were unkind. However, if he wasn't going to tell them, then Shilian wasn't going to ask. And the two walked along the long corridor of stone. "You're keeping secrets, WuXiang! What did they say?" I mean, I don't think he was lying, because it probably was a meaningless argument. But what was it? What was it? Having only walked for a while, did they discover the formation of the stone cave underneath the snow was much more complex than they thought. It wasn't just the one path going all the way. There were many forks in the road going to various other caverns, big and small. Within every cavern, there was a divine statue, some tall, some short, some boyish, some youthful. The robes were ever-changing, and the poses were all different, reposing and standing, sitting composedly, sword-wielding, dancing, all sorts. The level of skills was different, too. Some of the sculpting work was rough and unrefined, while others were so extraordinarily exquisite they couldn't be called otherworldly. They probably weren't all sculpted by the same person. As Shilian looked along the way, he couldn't help but exclaim in awe, This is the place. This place is a cave of 10,000 gods. The one who built this cave must be an incredibly devout believer. But all the divine statues had the same peculiarity. All their faces were covered by a light veil. Some had their entire bodies covered, exceedingly strange. Shilian really was quite curious and wanted to pull off the veil of one of the divine statues to see his face, but WuXiang spoke up behind him, Gege, I suggest you don't. Why not? I think these statues are a bit weird. It's precisely because it's weird that it's best you don't. If this face was covered, there's a reason why it's covered. The head is the place where a person's spiritual energy is gathered. So if the veil is removed, who knows what would happen with all the spiritual energy gathered by these weird statues? Oh, his speech sounded pretty out there, but it made sense. If the veil was removed and woke something within those statues, then things wouldn't be funny anymore. He contemplated and dropped his hand. So it's kind of like in volume 1, going back to that, where we had the brides with the veils, right? But they were all dead. So are these all dead heavenly officials that have just been like gathered? It's like an in memoriam to them that have gathered under the mountain and they're all dead, but the spiritual energy's sucked up there? I was only curious which deity this is, that's all. WuXiang said lightly, this is the kingdom of WuXiang. So it's probably the crown prince of WuXiang. Nothing amazing. But Shilian said, I don't think so. Oh, what do you mean? WuXiang asked. Shilian gazed at him. From all the murals we've seen along the way, the style of dress the crown prince of WuXiang and the people of WuXiang are very different from the style of dress of these divine statues. So I think these statues probably have nothing to do with the crown prince of WuXiang. In fact, this might not have been sculpted by someone of WuXiang. WuXiang smiled brightly at him. Is that right? Gege really has an eye for detail. Shilian also smiled. No, it's just the style of these statues. Whether it be sculpting, the dress, the details in which the flowing lines are carved, they all look more the style of later periods. For example, Shanla's style. WuXiang raised his brows. It seems Gege is also deeply gifted in this area. No, one would gain some knowledge after seeing so much of something like statues. It's nothing. Although he couldn't quite put his finger on it, his instincts told him that since earlier, there had been something off about WuXiang. And after having talked to this point, WuXiang was starting to become subtly nervous. Oh my God, what is this volume so far? What? No, nope. We got one more chapter, don't we? Yep, 174, The Cave of 10,000 Gods, Faces of 10,000 Gods Hidden, Part 2. But he didn't press on it. Since Sanlong thinks it's best not to look at them, then let's stay cautious. WuXiang nodded lightly, and the two continued onwards. Just then they came to another fork in the road, and WuXiang went straight for the left. Shilian paused in step and didn't follow, and WuXiang looked back. What is it? Sanlong's never come to this cave before, right? Naturally, then how come you're so sure we should go left? I'm not so much sure, I'm just going blindly. Since you've never come here before, how can you go blindly? Shouldn't we consider which way to go more carefully? WuXiang smiled. It's precisely because I've never been here before that we should go blindly. Either way, we know nothing of the formation of this place, so we might as well boldly bet on our luck, and my luck has always been better. Although he certainly made sense, actually, every time the two went out, he had always let Shilian decide the way. It wasn't often that WuXiang took the initiative to lead. Shilian nodded, and the two were just about to enter the tunnel on the left, when suddenly Shilian spoke up. Wait, so long did you hear that? What? On the right, there are voices. His face changed subtly, and after listening intently for a while, he said, Gege, you've heard wrong. There's nothing. No, there is. Listen closely. It's a man's voice. I really don't hear anything. Oh my God. Shilian was taken aback and wondered himself, am I hallucinating again? Your Highness, this is fishy. There might be tricks afoot. I suggest we talk after getting out first. Well, no, it might be Nan Feng and Fu Yao. I best go take a look after all. He ran down the path while WuXiang called after him. No, Gege, don't run off. However, hearing that faint yelling, the other party must have fallen into an extremely dangerous state and couldn't allow any delay. Shilian didn't dare be careless either and quickly ran down the path to the right. The deeper he went down the tunnel, the clearer the angry roars of a man could be heard. Shilian was delighted and thought, it really is Nan Feng and Fu Yao. Something is up! No, because WuXiang didn't want them to go that way. He did not want Shilian to get next to Nan Feng and Fu Yao. And Shilian didn't know how long he spent going down the winding tunnel, but then he finally found the source of the voices. It was a giant cave. There was no divine statues in this cave, but a deep pit instead, and this was where Nan Feng and Fu Yao's voices were coming from. It seemed they were both trapped at the bottom of the pit, unable to climb up. However, they were still energetically yelling at each other, so there shouldn't be any life-threatening troubles for the moment. It was too dark down below to see anything clearly, and Shi Lian cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted from above, "Oh guys, what happened to you guys?" When the two at the bottom heard someone was there, they instantly stopped arguing, and Fu Yao's voice came. "Your Highness, is that you? Hurry and pull us up." Nan Feng, on the other hand, didn't speak. And Shi Lian was puzzled. "Well, you guys can't climb up on your own? This pit isn't that deep, though. What's happening down there?" It might have been because there had been fighting the entire way, and Fu Yao was full of fire at the moment. "Rubbish! If we could climb up on our own, we would have done it already. Your Highness, don't you have eyes?" Shi Lian squinted. "I can't see that clearly. Do you have spiritual power? Can you light a palm torch so I can see what situation is down there? If you can't, I'll throw a fireball down." Yet unexpectedly, before he finished the sentence, the two at the bottom yelled, "Don't!" The sound of them stopping him was close to alarm and terror. Fu Yao then yelled, "Absolutely do not light any fires." If he couldn't light fires, then he'd have to use other ways to illuminate the place, and Shi Lian's first reaction was looking back. San Long. However, San Long did not follow after him. There was no one behind him. Shi Lian was slightly taken aback. At first he felt slightly worried, then after it was confusion. He couldn't have lost his way. Ever since they'd entered this cave of 10,000 gods, HEADPHONE had been acting quite strange, but Shi Lian couldn't quite put his finger on exactly why. He looked to his left and right and suddenly discovered that on his own shoulder there rested a tiny silver butterfly, and he touched it lightly. "Hello?" When the wraith butterfly felt his touch, it fluttered its wings a couple times but didn't fly away. It only seemed to be showing him its flapping. On this journey, Shi Lian had heard HEADPHONE tell him that silver butterflies were divided into various categories. He didn't know what category this one belonged to and what it was responsible for, but whatever it was made for, it could at least shine some light. He said, "Can you go down and take a look for me?" Sure enough, the silver butterfly flapped its wings and flew down. Shi Lian called out, "Thank you," and waited until it reached the bottom of the pit. Once the soft silver light illuminated the situation below, Shi Lian couldn't help but widen his eyes. At the bottom of the dark pit was a field of haunting white. The entire hole was covered in thick layers of silk. Fan Yang and Fu Yao were both wrapped in two cocoons among the silk, like two little flies stuck in a spider's web. They were both black and blue in the face, their heads covered in blood. Oh, but who knows if that had been caused by their mutual beatings earlier. Shi Lian couldn't help but pat himself on the back, not doing things recklessly. If he'd thrown a torch down, the entire pit would probably have been set ablaze instead. Oh, okay. What's going on? Is that a cobweb? Could this be the nest of a spider spirit? Well, who knows, Fu Yao said. Either way, we can't break free. It seemed he was desperate to escape. Nan Feng, on the other hand, had an unreadable expression. He looked as if he was going to call for help at first, too, but when he saw the one who came with Shi Lian, he stifled and swallowed his words. He said instead, "Don't come down yet. The silk is really tough. Once it gets to you, it'll be hard to break free." "I won't come down," Shi Lian said. After deliberating for a moment, Shi Lian tied the end of Ruyi to the hilt of Feng Shen and was going to lower the sword down to try and see. Yet unexpectedly, Ruyi would only sneak down halfway before the cobwebs discovered it and rapidly shot upward, as if ready to show what they were made of. Ruyi backed away in terror, yet it was still too late. The cobwebs tied a knot and yanked it down, pulling Shi Lian down as well. He'd never imagined that this cobweb was actually strong and sharp. The moment Shi Lian fell into the pit, the white strings of silk instantly charged forward and tied him up nicely. The rest of the cobwebs were slowly crawling about, further securing the cocoons on Nan Feng and Fu Yao's bodies. Fu Yao was going mad with rage. "How come you fell too? Now look at us, three dumb fools. Let's all die here together." "What are you griping about?" Nan Feng shot back. "This only happened because he was trying to save us." Shi Lian, on the other hand, was tumbling about laughing. And the two looked at him dumbfoundedly. "Did you hurt your brain on the way down? Have you lost your mind?" Tears were rolling down the corners of Shi Lian's eyes, and he said with much difficulty, he's like, "No, what's with these cobwebs? Why are they so ticklish? I can't." When he fell down, the silk bed very gently caught him, and the cobwebs that came up to bind him were also very gentle and tame. While they were apprehending him, they brushed soft here and there like they were tickling him. Shi Lian curled into a ball, tenaciously fighting back. No, stop, wait, don't, I give, stop!" Only then did the silk white bind his hands behind his back and stopped. Fu Yao and Nan Feng watched him. A moment later, Fu Yao said grumpily, "How come these cobwebs were so rough in binding us, but so loose when binding him? Not even his face is covered." Xilian finally caught his breath and said, Aren't your faces uncovered too? Fu Yao rolled his eyes and replied, They were covered, but after we came to, we used our teeth to bite through them. Otherwise, there would have been no way we could make noise. Xilian tried struggling for a bit, but the cobweb was indeed tough and unyielding. Plus, he was laughing too hard earlier and his ribs were in pain, so he was temporarily out of commission. He decided instead to relax a bit, lying himself down flat. How did you two end up here? We don't know, Fu Yao replied. When the avalanche happened, the snow came crashing down like the sky was collapsing. By the time we woke up, we were already here. No, Xilian said. I meant, why did you both come to Mount Tonglu? When the subject was raised, Fu Yao became enraged. I was pursuing the female ghost Lan Chong and that fetus spirit. Who knows why he's here? Me, I'm here to chase after that mother and child too, Nan Feng answered. Fu Yao spat. Then why didn't you go chase them? Why'd you hit me? My general already said the fetus spirit has got nothing to do with him and he didn't kill them. His good heart is taken for a donkey's liver. Truly there's no point in being a good person. Xilian meditated out of habit. Well, all right, stop arguing. I understand the situation now. Stop fighting for now and stop your arguing. You even caused the avalanche just now, so can you just take a break? Let's think of a way out of here. But Nan Feng was also incensed. Does your general not know what he's usually like? He has no reason to complain if people are suspicious of him. Fu Yao glared. What did you say? I dare you say that again. Nan Feng was glaring harder than him. I do dare, and I'll say it again. It wasn't like you had any good intentions. You only want to show benevolence to those that you can't stand, so you can all be all pleased with yourself in secret. You're just satisfying yourself and waiting to watch others make a fool of themselves. Don't give me that good heart taken for a donkey liver, and don't think yourself a good person. Genuinely good people aren't like you. You've never been one. Veins popped on Fu Yao's forehead and his lips twitching. This is all your imagination. Pure nonsense. Well, now Nan Feng, he's talking about WuXiang. Do you suspect that he's WuXiang? Nan Feng shouted, whether or not it's nonsense, you know best. How would I not know you? Fu Yao's veins were now popping all the way down his neck. What right do you have to lecture me? Looking down on people from so high up. Careful, you might fall and break a leg. Well, I'm stronger than you in everything, Nan Feng yelled back. Do you not think no one knows the shitty deed that you've done? Just the mention of it, Fu Yao seemed even more furious. Yes, I admit it. But how much stronger are you than me? Taking care of yourself for the model of loyalty? Didn't you dish the boss when the wife came along? The wife and the son became more important? Everyone's doing things for themselves. It's the self that's priority. Aren't you embarrassed for hanging on to that shitty deed over my head? When he heard wife and son, Nan Feng was completely outraged. You. Although the two couldn't move, they were already at each other's throat and did not realize the way they had addressed each other had gone from your general and my general to you and me. Because they were overly aggravated, they completely did not notice they were exposing something, and only now did they come around, and Xilian had long stopped talking. No. Xilian. Nan Feng and Fu Yao both whipped their heads over to look in Xilian's direction and saw that he had silently flipped on the silk bed, turning over and only showing them his back. I saw nothing. I didn't hear anything. Xilian faced the stone wall and said gently, are you going to keep going? As for what you're discussing, I won't comment on anything else, but I actually do think the wife and the son are the most important. There's nothing wrong with that. It's basic human sentiment. These are all really old gripes, so let's not stew ourselves on it and think of a way to escape first. Fu Yao cut him off. You already knew? Since he couldn't get away with it any longer, he could only concede. Yeah. When did you find out? How did you find out? He didn't have the heart to tell him the truth, and he said instead, I've forgotten. The real answer was a very, very long time ago. Since Mount Yujun, he had a faint suspicion, and by the time they made it to Banyu Pass, he'd already verified the truth. What junior marshal officials in middle court? They didn't exist. Nan Feng and Fu Yao were little clones created by Feng Xin and WuXiang. Oh my god! What? Oh my god! It was like Fu Yao couldn't believe his real identity had been so easily seen through and was relentless. Well, what exactly did you find out? How did you find out? There must have been something that gave away. What was the flaw? He couldn't really bear to tell them the truth. There wasn't anything to give it away since those two had flaws all over. The three had grown up together after all. How could Xilian not be familiar with the way they behaved and spoke? From the sloppy fake names to the never-changing personalities. It was too easy to guess. If he couldn't guess who was under those skins, he would have lived all these years for nothing. Oh my god, yes! But some things are best left not said by the person themselves, and some things are best not done. For example, in minding the appearance of a heavenly official, one could easily roll eyes or cuss, but in a different identity, he could be so much more open and relaxed. Shilian never felt the need to expose them. Nan is the same character in Feng Shen's heavenly title, Nan Yang. Yes, Feng is the same character in Feng Shen's proper name. Fu Yao literally means to take off or take flight. Figuratively, it means someone who climbs the ladder quickly or is ambitious. Oh my God! Ah! Oh! Fu Yao. No. Now he should be called WuXiang. WuXiang gritted his teeth and said chillingly, "So you've already known who we were for a long time, but you never said anything. You were only watching us play acting quietly, right?" Oh my God. Oh my God. Ah, no. No. Oh, well. Oh my God. But is it too late to go back now? Is it too late to turn back? Oh no, I don't think I'm ready for volume 6. I can already tell. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. No, Romania's not ready at all. I need to go back. Can we take the blue pill? Can we go back? Well, on the one hand, we can go ahead and erase this. We can erase this off of here. No worries there. We already know the answer to that one. And the answer to that one is that there was no Fu Yao. There is no Nan Feng. It's been Feng Shen and WuXiang from the start. And all I can do is go, finally. We get confirmation about this. I mean, I'm glad that we found out that WuXiang has been Fu Yao this entire time. That makes so much sense. But oh my God, it makes so much sense. It is like, that makes it has been so frustrating this entire series, because I cannot tell you how many times I have caught myself wanting to confuse Feng Shen and WuXiang for Fu Yao and Nan Feng. Like, I have wanted, not only because their names are similar, which Shilian's kind of like, you guys give yourselves like the worst fake names. It's like Suspicious Miss, it's like Mr. Suspicious Inconspicuous. Like, you know, Inconspicuous. It's like Mr. Suspicious Inconspicuous is like your spy name. It's like, come on now. It's been so frustrating because so often I have viewed the two of them, like the two pairs, exactly the same. Like, I was going back and I was going to go ahead and edit up to this point before starting this discussion, and I realized that when they were up on the avalanche in the mountain, they were like, I was like, oh, they're like two stags, and then I was thinking, wait, no, that's WuXiang and Nan Feng, not the two of them. But it is, because yeah, their actions, everything about their mannerisms, the fact they're always arguing with one another. It was cute back in volume 1 because you're like, oh, well, they just hired 2 deputy generals that are just like them. They're just like them because they are them. And it's like, and since it should have made sense and all clicked when we discovered that Heshan has had 50 clones in the official court, and all the clones could change their appearances to look like something else. So that all makes sense now. It's like, that should have clicked at that moment that, oh, WuXiang and Feng Shen can change their clones' appearance to look like deputy generals, like Heshan did with the Heavenly Court. That should have all made sense. But because we hadn't heard from Feng Shen and WuXiang for so long, I forgot about that. It's like, MXTX knows exactly what they're doing. They know when to bring out these reveals, and they know just to wait just long enough to where you kind of forget about things, and then go poof, and then it's there, and it's like, oh my God. So yes, I'm so glad that we've got that settled. Although now that we have one mystery out of the way, there is one other that I was thinking about when we mentioned Banyu that I was like, wait, that we don't have answered, and so we'll replace it with the idea of who sent the puppet from Banyu to Shilian. We still don't know the answer to that question. That's another one, like, who sent that original puppet to Xilian from Banyu? Who did it? Because we don't think it's the Windmaster. We don't think it's HEADPHONE. We don't think it's WuXiang or Fengshen. We don't think it's HuaChang. So who was the one that sent that first puppet that started this whole damn story? I'm like, who sent them? And we don't know, right? And we don't know. But there's a lot. I didn't take a whole lot of time reading these 2 chapters, but there's a lot to talk about, and I'm a bit freaked out, if I'm being honest. So, okay, the second ascent, we still don't know anything about it. The fetus spirit origin, we basically get confirmation that kid is Fengshen's, and WuXiang is adamant that he did not kill the fetus spirit. Well, so they think it's his son. I think that they know it's his son because the fetus spirit seems male. So they're like, it was Fengshen's son before whatever happened. So we do get that. HuaChang's promotion. HuaChang was weird this set of chapters. Very weird. And we're going to talk about that. Who sent the puppet from Banyu? Don't know. Ling Wen and Bai WuXiang are still missing. MIA. The Goshi of Shanla and the Mountain Spirits. Who knows? Long Ying. Who knows? The Windmaster HEADPHONE. Who knows? Ruyi. Who knows? Although I do want to talk a little bit about Ruyi and the silk bed. I want to talk about that when we get to it. Xilian and the murals. We have this cave, but I feel like Xilian kind of figured out what the cave was, and so we'll talk about that. Bai WuXiang getting mentioned in these chapters. What the hell? Nope, we're getting closer to something. Something's wrong. We can talk about that, and then Xilian recognizing HuaChang in the ashes. The ashes have been so thrown out of this equation, we don't even know. But there were several moments in this volume, these first 2 chapters, I was like, oh, right out the gate. Oh, right out the gate, we're doing this. So again, quality over quantity. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait till the next section for the Manhua. I don't know. It depends on where I get with my reactions between now and then. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait, y'all. We may just have 2 weeks without the Manhua, and I'm sorry. But the next set of chapters is chapters 175 through 179, and it's the most I've ever read for a reaction, which is 60 pages. It's a lot, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait until we get there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait, because now, this was a weird cutoff. It was we got the reveal of WuXiang and Fengshen, but then we just stopped the chapter, and there wasn't really anything after that. So it was a weird cutoff. So I'm sorry if I read the next set, because it's really long and I need more time with it, but that may happen. That may happen, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry ahead of time, but oh my God. So we don't find out who created the murals, but we get a hint, and it's the mask of Bai WuXiang. Now that doesn't tell us anything, but here's the thing. This is the what we know, right? I guess we need to put what we know here, and then over here in dark red, because HuaChang is being super suspicious, we're going to put I put HuaChang up there. What we don't know. What is not known. Okay. I'm glad I don't have to having to keep track of the differences between Fu Yao and WuXiang and Fengshen and Nan Feng, because their names were so similar and their personalities were so similar. Thank God I don't have to keep track of that anymore. Oh my gosh, we just get that out of the way. I'm glad moving forward that's done. Good. Chalk it up. Nice. I feel like it makes text like like things are about to get a lot more complicated, so let's just get this out of the way now, starting out. And it's like, okay. So what we know is that Xilian is afraid of Bai WuXiang. We know that because he's told HuaChang in the last set of chapters that he's terrified of Bai WuXiang. He fears him. That's the one thing he fears. And so that's what we know. What we don't know is who has messed with the murals, right? And another thing that we know that Anime Annie kind of pointed out in their comment for the last set is the idea that HuaChang tells Xilian that Xilian often, he's smart, but he is tailoring his reasoning with his emotional response. That is something that's well to point out, because if the stuff about the rats is true, HeADPHONE points out, he's like, the rats aren't speaking to you in WuXiang. They're just conveying these emotions that have been implanted into you somewhere, somehow, by someone. So it is easy to assume that, oh, he sees the half smiling, half crying mask, Bai WuXiang is responsible. But from what we know by what HeADPHONE has told us, it's Shilian's afraid of Bai WuXiang. Whoever's doing this may just be preying upon Shilian's fears. It could have been whatever Shilian was afraid of was going to show up on that mask, right? If Shilian was afraid of Qirong, Qirong would have shown up on the mask. If he was afraid of Junwu, Junwu would show up on the mask. So it may not be that it's Bai WuXiang, but that it's just Shilian's fears manifesting into whatever that mask was going to look like at the time. And the point was to draw him out and get him to stab something so the spirit could escape. So whoever caused the mural's demolition could escape. That's what it seems to be. It was a way to draw Shilian out, to make him act without thinking clearly, and then using it as a distraction to get away. That seems to be what has happened, right? They use that moment of the statue as a way to get out and to distract Shilian. So, because again, Junwu has told us that Bai WuXiang is dead, and I'm like, is he? Is he? Are we sure about that? And maybe he is. Maybe this is just fear. Maybe it's just Shilian being afraid, and being so afraid that's manifesting itself. I don't know. But when you believe something, it becomes real in this world. Like if people believe a certain way about a heavenly official, they do kind of become that. And that's been a message since volume 1. So if Shilian believes it's Bai WuXiang, will it manifest Bai WuXiang? I don't know, but HeADPHONE is trying to be Lan Wangji from Modao Zushi and say, look, we can't judge something until we have all the evidence. And he's saying, you are so emotionally compromised in this case that you're trying to tailor the evidence to fit your logic. And he's like, that we can't do that. He's like, anybody, it's kind of a nice message saying anybody can tailor anything to be what they want to if they try hard enough, right? I did a class on memory, and we were talking about reading things from 2 different sides. And sometimes humans alter memories to fit a certain narrative. And you don't think that happens, but it's very true, because we read in the class a story from 2 different people's perspective. And it was about, and in the story, the same incident happened, but the way each of them talked about it was differently, and the reactions were different. And so our teacher was like, okay, well, who's telling the truth? Who is viewing the situation the correct way? And we were both like, we argued about it for a long time. And the teacher's like, well, what if we're all wrong? How do we know what actually happened because we weren't there? And what if these 2 people genuinely believe that their version of that memory is correct? What do we do with that? And so that is kind of something reflected here of, Shilian's kind of tailoring stuff to be a certain way, but who's to say he's wrong? Who's to say he's right? It's very fascinating, and I feel like this volume is going to give us answers. It's just, are we ready for those answers? And I don't know. So he sees the face with the crying side and the light side, and HeADPHONE does not see the mask that way. He's like, what did you just see just now? I think something that is throwing HeADPHONE off is that he can't help Shilian in this moment. This is something HeADPHONE has no control over. So what we don't know is how HeADPHONE is truly feeling. HeADPHONE says that he's like, Gege, you gotta calm down. I feel like a lot of it is HeADPHONE is not in control of the situation. He's like, I can't, when he can't help his Gege, he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's prided himself on being able to be fully in control and in charge of the situation and able to help Shilian whenever possible. He got mad when he was turned into a little kid because that was a moment of relapse where he's like, I can't help him. And now he's at a point where he's not seeing what Shilian's seeing, and that's a problem, right? So he's like trying to double down and try to control the situation as much as he can. So yeah, was it a hallucination? Was it an illusionment spell? We don't know at this point, but those are both possibilities. So I like the idea that the mountain, the kiln itself, has this weird gravity where you can't just fly up to the top of it. I think that's a good narrative choice to be like, well, why couldn't they just fly to the top? Why can't you use the eagles to take the ring to Mordor? Like one of those situations from Lord of the Rings where the narrator's like, no, there's a gravity here. You can't do that. You're stuck. You got to walk uphill. And it gets more and more snowy and like past their knees, making it longer and harder for them to climb up the mountain. There's also the color of white that is throughout these chapters. There's the white of the snow. There's the white of the dream, Xilian's robes, Ruyi, the white silk. There's a lot of reference to the color of white, which is like funeral garb. And I'm like, oh, we're getting a little scary up here. Very, very interesting. But yes, they keep going up, and HEADPHONE's telling him to be careful. Now, the thing about it is, HEADPHONE has memorized like 90% of Mount Tonglu, including the holes on Mount Tonglu, which we assume are holes to the cavern. Now, HEADPHONE is lying in these chapters. He is lying, or he is withholding information, because him saying he has no clue about this cavern, I'm like, do you not? You've memorized everything else? So HEADPHONE in the cave. HEADPHONE in the cave. Is he lying? A part of me thinks he is, but then another part of me is like, is this something that Xilian has? Did Xilian have a magic password that when he shows up, suddenly parts of Mount Tonglu will open up? And if that is the case, why? Why is Xilian the one that activates this if HEADPHONE has no clue where they are? But I think that he is lying because, well, maybe not necessarily. Maybe not necessarily. I feel like, so if he's telling the truth and the cave is something that only Xilian could access, why? Why is that? Why can only Xilian access something on Mount Tonglu of all things? If this is going back to Wuyang and Xilian being the prince of Wuyang and this all having some connection, maybe that's true. Or HEADPHONE is lying. Now we know HEADPHONE, he chose left because he could sense WuXiang and Feng Xin on the right. Right? I want to know what they said that made HEADPHONE get so angry, because HEADPHONE did not like what they said. They were arguing about the fetus spirit at the time, but why are they there? I guess they think the fetus spirit and Jean Lan is going to go to the top of the mountain to the kiln, and that's why they're going there. But there's a part of me that wonders if WuXiang and Feng Xin are connected to the Goshi somehow. If there's more to it than that, if they're not just Xilian's officials, but if they know about the Goshi, or if they know something that Xilian doesn't about the Goshi. I mean, we've assumed that the Goshi, it's been the Goshi and the mountain spirits that are the four generals, and the Goshi knows Feng Xin and WuXiang from Shanla, so it seems a little coincidental that both Feng Xin and WuXiang just happen to show up at Mount Tonglu, where the Goshi is, and all these people from Xilian's past are just conveniently gathered. It seems suspicious. And I don't know what to do with it. And this entire volume is already reeking of suspicion. Already reeking of suspicion. Not having it. I don't know if I'm going to be happy with this. I don't know. But yeah. So he says that he's like, this area has too many hollow ditches, whatever. And so we get Feng Xin and WuXiang arguing, saying, what are you done? I already said the little bastard wasn't killed by me. I'm looking for them too. Yeah. And so I like that HEADPHONE's like, do they not know they're going to cause an avalanche? And Xilian's like, they're kind of idiots. And Xilian, the thing about it is Xilian has known that it's been them this whole time. So back when Feng Xin was talking to him, oh my God, back then when Xilian was talking to him out of the inn, Xilian was like, oh really, WuXiang's playing Fu Yao. Really, you don't say. He's known this whole time. Oh. And he just let it go because he was like, you guys probably have your reasons, so I'm just going to back off. But he's known for a long time. So all the time when they said that Fu Yao and Nan Feng were like detained and in detention, no, they weren't. Feng Xin and WuXiang were just hanging out, and that was their excuse. Oh my God. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So speaking of the fetus spirit, we're going to put them over here, so, or however you say it. See, it's awful if I try to say it. And Jean Lan. So we have reason to believe that Feng Xin is the dad, and that Jean Lan was either his wife or wife-to-be, and that is a reason why he abandoned Shi Lian. And it's kind of sad when Shi Lian's like, well, the mom and son take precedence, so I don't blame you for leaving me because of that. Like, it's just, and it feels so awful because I think there's part of Feng Shen at this moment that realizes he probably should have communicated better back then, but what could you do? And Fu Yao's kind of or Mu-Qing's kind of throwing it in his face, being like, well, you abandoned him too, so don't get all high and mighty, blah, blah, blah. But we find out that it is his son. But Mu-Qing did not kill. So then there's the question of what happened. And again, we don't know. I'm hoping we find out by the end what the actual situation was. I feel like we are if the two of them are involved, and we're at Mount Tonglu. So if they're going to show up, if Zhan Lan and the Fetus Spirit are going to show up, now's the time. So maybe it'll happen this volume. Are we going to get to the top of Mount Tonglu this volume or not? I feel like the top of Mount Tonglu is going to be it's either one of two things. Either Mount Tonglu is the climax of this series, and then the resolution is going to take place in the Heavenly Realm, or Mount Tonglu is like right before the climax, and we find out we should have been in the Heavenly Realm all the time, and we have to go and the climax is up there. Now, whether that's true or not, we'll find out. But yeah, they cause an avalanche. I like Shi Lian's like, we can't let them keep fighting like this. And then Hua Chang's like, fine, I'll send a silver butterfly to go check it out. But whenever the butterfly gets to them, Hua Chang instantly has a frigid face. So the question is, what did they say? What did they say? Can we trust them? I feel like Hua Chang doesn't trust Mu-Qing and Fu Yao. He doesn't want Shi Lian. And here's the thing. There is a question. The moment that Hua Chang was worried about Fu Yao and Mu-Qing, or Mu-Qing and Feng Shen, I'm going to get their names right at some point. The moment he was worried about what they said, some things dropped to mind. Either one, whatever they said is going to cause Shi Lian pain, either as a betrayal or a truth that Hua Chang knows that Shi Lian does not. So my theory is it's either twofold. Either Hua Chang heard them say something and he was like, they're going to betray Shi Lian at some point, and that's not good. Although it doesn't seem likely. You would think, you're like, well, Feng Shen at least wouldn't betray Shi Lian. Mu-Qing could kind of see it, but Feng Shen wouldn't betray Shi Lian, right? So unless Hua Chang has realized that they're going to betray Shi Lian, and that's going to be a problem, or the other thing is that they know something and are going to say something. They could potentially say something to Shi Lian that will hurt him, or that Hua Chang already knew about but was intentionally not letting Shi Lian know because it would hurt him. I think it's the latter. I don't think that Feng Shen and Mu-Qing are going to betray Shi Lian. I don't think so. They're too much of an idiot to do that. And Feng Shen is way too loyal to do that. But I do think that they might know some information that Hua Chang has intentionally not let Shi Lian know, because the last thing Hua Chang wants to do is hurt Shi Lian. And Shi Lian, bless his heart, Shi Lian is so used to being tortured and hurt that he just doesn't even think anything about it anymore. But Hua Chang's like, that's not right. So they know something that Hua Chang does not want them telling Shi Lian because it's going to cause pain. And that's why he doesn't want Shi Lian around them. This whole novel series, Hua Chang has tried to keep Shi Lian away from people that would hurt him. The whole Windmaster and Heshan thing, Hua Chang was like, just stay out of it, let it sort itself out. You don't need to be involved. It doesn't matter to you. And then Shi Lian only ended up getting hurt because of losing his friend. The same thing seems to be happening here. So what they said, I don't know. I don't think it's like a life or death thing, but I think it's something that Hua Chang was like, Shi Lian does not need to know this. It will make him feel really bad. One of those situations. So Shi Lian tried to use Rui to get a hold of them, but it did not work. They managed to fall in the hole without him. And instead, Hua Chang's like, leave them, don't bother. Like, don't mess with them. They'll be fine. You don't need to be around them right now. They're going to cause you pain. And then they end up getting in the avalanche. Now, I wasn't worried about Shi Lian and Hua Chang being separated too long in this chapter set because of the red string of fate, because the two are connected to one another. It's a nice little lifeline of, okay, they're probably okay. Now, if Shi Lian looked down and the red string was gone, I'd feel really bad and be like, oh no. But MXTX, you know what? There's one trope in this entire series I did not think we were getting. I thought, there's no way MXTX would do that. That seems a bit cliche. Why would you do that? The fake out dream sequence. How dare you? At that moment with the fake out dream sequence, I was like, oh no. This novel's not going to be fun. No. Because I was like, how could you? Like, the idea of Shilian digging himself out of the snow with his hands frostbit and numb, and then seeing no trace of red, that seems like a very symbolic gesture that the white no-face wants to erase, like, any sense of hope or love from Shilian. Like, that's what it represents. The white no-face is a symbol of complete fear and, like, hopelessness. Because WuXiang has been a symbol of hope for Shilian. So without him there, it's like, what do we do? And so Shilian's like, well, I couldn't have just fell randomly. And so he goes around looking for them. The thing that should have tipped it off that was a dream was that Ruyi wasn't there. He's like, Ruyi shouldn't have unwrapped. Even if he let it go, Ruyi would still bind itself to him. So what happened? That's interesting. So apparently Ruyi cannot separate himself from Shilian. That is interesting. I mean, it's been kind of suggested this entire time, but never confirmed. So Ruyi cannot leave Shilian's side as a spiritual device. Okay. Good to know. Good to know that it's always going to be a constant. And that's when he sees the white no-face. And then he screams and wakes up. Because when he says, my friend, I'm like, oh no, not a friend at all. Nope. White robes, black hair, sleeves flapping in the wind. There's so many parts of this that I already want to see animated. And it pains me that we're not getting it anytime soon. So it's a dream. He wakes up and he goes and looks in this cave. Ruyi's with him. And he has Feng Shin. He has the sword with him. And then it's a stone statue in a cave. Now, the divine statue has a light veil covering it. It seems very reminiscent of the Corpse Brides from the first volume. It's funny that we're going back to a lot of volume 1 things. We're going back to the beginning this volume already, which is terrifying. But yeah, it seems like a light veil, like a mist. I get very creepy vibes from veils, especially since reading Harry Potter. There's like, the veils are not something of, they're usually something that you get wary by. It has a mysterious beauty. So, I do think WuXiang brings up a good point of don't lift the veils, that their spiritual energy is contained within them. We don't want that released. It's best if you don't look. But is that the entirety of it? Is that the entire truth, right? So what are the statues? He says the statues look like they're in the style of Shanla. So, okay. So the statues are not in WuXiang style. The robes are similar to Shanla style. There are some theories we could have with this. As far as theories go, could the statues all be Shilian? But it said they were all different sizes and body types, so I don't know what that means. He says it was the cave of 10,000 gods. So are they all the heavenly officials of Shilian's time? Why would you make statues of all the heavenly officials of that time period? Why? Why would you do that? And the reason why I think that is because he says, oh, I thought, are you all right? And then WuXiang's like, I'm fine. How are you? And he says he's okay. And then WuXiang's like, I don't know. We're under the mountain. WuXiang has never not had an answer for Shilian. He's always had answers for him. And he's been very proud about answering the questions. But this is the first time he's like, I really don't want to talk about this place. So maybe WuXiang, maybe this place is painful for him. I don't know. Maybe did WuXiang make all of these statues? No. I mean, could WuXiang have made all these statues and now he's just like, I don't want to talk about this? Are they all Shilian? There's one picture given for this set, and it is of all these statues here. And WuXiang looks very, he looks concerned throughout all of these. The reason why I say that it could be Shilian is because there's one holding a sword, which we know Shilian's a martial god. There's one holding a flower, which Shilian is known by the flower. But then there's one here in the back that has like the big like ribbon around him, kind of like Junwoo. That's the only thing that makes me think it might not be Shilian. They might all be Shilian, sure. They all kind of look like him based on the image. But then there's that one in the back where it's the robe that kind of looks like Junwoo. So The question is, are these all statues of Shi Lian? And WuXiang doesn't want him to know that, because here's the thing. If Shi Lian saw that all the statues were of him, it would further the idea, I feel, that Shi Lian's going to think that the Prince of Wuyang is him. That seems like very obvious. That if Shi Lian sees all these statues in the design of Shanla, he's going to be like, I'm the prince. And WuXiang has been very adamant to be like, no, you're not. So it could be that, but it could be that WuXiang under this mountain made all these statues of Shi Lian. He was there for 10 years. It could be that WuXiang made all these statues of Shi Lian and buried him under the mountain. But then the question is, if that is the case, why didn't he tell Shi Lian? Well, one reason is he doesn't want Shi Lian to know how much he worships Shi Lian, even though it's been very obvious the entire story. Shi Lian knows that WuXiang cares about him, but he doesn't know that WuXiang worships the ground he walks upon. We as the audience know that, but Shi Lian's pretty oblivious. So it could be that WuXiang does not want to admit that he's been worshiping Shi Lian this entire time and building statues of him under the mountain. That could be. It could also be that he's been secretly trying to create these statues and worshiping Shi Lian to keep his power up while he's in the mortal world. That could be too. Or it could be that WuXiang does not want to reveal why these statues are here. Maybe he didn't create the statues. Maybe somebody else did. So there are numerous reasons, but the question now is, are the statues all of Shi Lian? Are they of other heavenly officials? I don't know. He says this cave wasn't small before had he never developed it. And so Shi Lian's kind of like, WuXiang questions, maybe we made a misstep. It can't have been that someone put us here intentionally. Yeah, the moment he mentioned that, I was like, or someone did. I don't know. I do love his reply when Shi Lian's like, where's Nan Feng and Fu Yao? And he's like, they're probably in the snow. Who cares? They're heavenly officials. This won't kill them. WuXiang's like, let's not focus on them. WuXiang is not happy with either of them, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it's probably that they're going to cause trouble for Shi Lian, and he doesn't like it. He's not happy about that. So he says, I didn't think it was that simple. WuXiang's sudden change of expression is a problem. But what I do love about this is that Shi Lian's like, he's like, I don't want to question him because WuXiang has been so honest with me so far. If he's keeping it guarded, it's probably for a reason. And I don't want to question it. I want to trust him. So that trust that Shi Lian has in WuXiang is so good. WuXiang has said he's not a trustworthy person. So I'm like, I feel like it's all, he said he's the most sincere, but he's not someone you should place all of your trust into. And that makes me go, I don't know what to think about. WuXiang is hiding something. That was apparent a few chapters ago. He's hiding something. The closer we get to the kiln, it's the more he's hiding. But he just doesn't want to tell Shi Lian, I think, because it's going to cause Shi Lian pain. The question is, what is he hiding? This volume is going to be the destruction of me. I can already tell! But yeah, so some are tall, some are short, some are boyish, some are youthful, robes ever-changing, poses all different. That's another thing. The fact that they all look different makes me think that they're not Shi Lian. Because I think if they all were the same type, that Shi Lian would notice and be like, wow, they all kind of look like the same height as me and wearing clothes that I would wear. So the fact that they aren't is interesting. And they don't look like they were sculpted by the same person. So that's interesting too. He's like, this place is a cave of 1,000 gods. They must have been an incredibly devout believer. So it's somebody that's made statues of all the deities of the heavenly realm around the time of Shanla. And he's like, if we remove the veil, WuXiang says, who knows what would happen with the spiritual energy. And Shi Lian's like, that's true, but I was just a little curious, that's why. And so Shi Lian points out that he doesn't think that the statues are from Wuyang. He says they could have been, they might not have been sculpted by someone of Wuyang at all. They're more like in Shanla style from later periods. So, and WuXiang is smiling the entire time, being like, wow, you sure have an eye for detail. Wow, you sure catch on quick. Wow, you're getting close to truths that I don't want you to know. WuXiang's like, he is internally screaming. This shirt is emblematic of WuXiang, this entire chapter set of him internally screaming, going, because I think, and the question with this is, if WuXiang knew that this cave was here, if he's known that this potential threat has been there the entire time, then I guess he didn't have any other choice. He's like, we've got to trek up the mountain. Let's just do this. And hopefully hopefully we don't fall in, you know, and get exposed to something that we shouldn't. But I'm like, what were you going to do at the top? I don't know. It's like, and WuXiang's like, you are deeply gifted in this area. He's like, after seeing so many statues, it's nothing. Yeah, Shilian's like, I've been around for 800 years. I've seen a lot of statues. I know that they're all, you know, what styles and periods they're from. And WuXiang's getting more and more nervous. When WuXiang is nervous, that's a problem. Because WuXiang's been so confident this entire series. And for him to get nervous now, I'm like, I don't like where this is headed. I'm not getting good vibes. I don't know how to feel about this. But then we have the other chapter where they get to a fork in the road. And WuXiang immediately wants to go left. And it's because he doesn't want Shilian to get next to Fengshen and Wuqing. Now, why? We don't know. Why is he so against Shilian? Because throughout this entire story, Shilian and WuXiang have been with Wuqing and Fengshen. They were there with him in Banyu. They've been there throughout, like, the whole thing with the inn while WuXiang was a kid. And here's the thing. Do I think that WuXiang has known that they've been Fengshen and Wuqing this entire time? Yes, I definitely think WuXiang knows, just like Shilian knew. I think he knows too. But my thing is, Fengshen, they ran into both Fengshen and Wuqing while WuXiang was in child form. If they were a threat to Shilian this entire time, why wasn't WuXiang like more... Well, I guess he didn't pull any stops about, like, he was trying to like shove him away, I guess. Now that you think about it, back at the inn, WuXiang was very adamant about them getting like crushed by the building and going away. He was like, get out of here. Leave. Don't want you around. Like, so maybe WuXiang has always wanted them to stay away from Shilian because he believes that they bring him, they make him feel pain. I don't know. But WuXiang and Shilian have traveled with the two of them before and things were okay. So why is WuXiang so adamant they don't get near him now? Something they said on the mountain triggered WuXiang and he was like, nope, don't need them. And so we hopefully will find out what that is. Now, here's my thing. When he first said, now looking back, it's like when he first was going to shine down the light and Fu Yao was like, don't do it. I thought maybe Fu Yao's face looked like Wuqing and maybe that was why. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want somebody shining a light down? But then we find out it's this silk. So here's the thing about the silk. Ruyi has been described as being silky, right? And Ruyi sticks with Shilian no matter what, kind of like the silk that's at the bottom of this cave, right? And we get the idea that the silk is very gentle with Shilian, right? So, with that being the case, there are two conclusions that I'm seeing with the silk being very gentle with Shilian and tickling him, whatnot, and Ruyi being silky himself and not repellent against the silk. So the question is Ruyi and the silk something generated by Shilian? Either in a past life as the Prince of Wuyang, whatever. Is Shilian Bai WuXiang, whatever. I know everybody's been like, no, they're separate people, and I'm like, humor me. But like, is it something generated? Did Shilian create Ruyi? And is Ruyi from the silk in this cave? Has Shilian been here before and not remembered it? We don't know. Or is Ruyi and the silk directly tied to WuXiang? That could be too. And maybe that's why WuXiang didn't want him to interact with it. WuXiang, I feel like WuXiang does not want Shilian. The question is, how intricately tied to Mount Tonglu and this place is WuXiang? Because if WuXiang created this silk, I mean, why would the silk be gentle to Shilian? If it was tied to WuXiang, kind of like Ming, and it's gentle to Shilian, that would make a lot of sense. If Ruyi was something that WuXiang created for Shilian and Shilian doesn't know it, that would make a lot of sense to protect and guide and help Shilian. That would know it too. But would the fact that this silk and Ruyi be tied to WuXiang point to the fact that maybe WuXiang is the former prince of Wuyang? And he's been up here on this mountain the whole time? And then after Shilian became the supreme ghost because he fell in love with them and was like, I need to go and save you. This volume's going to give us answers. I have a feeling we're going to get answers either this volume or next volume. I feel like it's the fact that I think this volume is going to give us answers is we've already got answers in the first two chapters. Major answers, like big answers. Like, oh my God, Wuqing and WuXiang and Feng Shen have been the clones the entire time. Huge answers. So I don't know if we're going to get a lot of twists and answers and reveals in this volume, and then the next 2 volumes are going to be like dealing with what those twists and reveals mean, and then getting to the resolution. I don't know. I don't have the copies yet, so I can't tell how thick those copies are going to be until we get them, right? Until we get them. And I don't want to know because I want them to be surprises. So yes. But yeah. So we end up going down in there and Shelian's all wrapped up in the cocoons. I get very Shelob vibes from Lord of the Rings. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, very Shelob, like giant spiders. Are there spiders in this cave? I don't know. Are they caught? They're literally in a spider's web right now. But is HEADPHONE the spider? I don't know. Is he a Black Widow? Right? I don't know. I don't know. My dogs are triggered by mentions of HEADPHONE. Triggered. They sound awful, but they're just playing. They're like literally just running around chasing each other and barking because they're herding dogs, and why not? But yeah, so what do we do with that? What do we do with that? So Shelian and all of them are wrapped up, and then this is where it all comes out because the two of them are bakas. They're idiots, and they can't stop arguing. And Shelian's like, "Why are you here at Mount Tonglu?" And Fu Yao's like, "I was pursuing the female ghost, Lan Chong, and the fetus spirit. I don't know why Feng Shen is here. And he's here. I'm chasing after the mother and child, too." And so, I love Fu Yao's like, "Why didn't you chase them? Why'd you come after me and hit me?" He's like, my general, yeah, like, gives it away, had said the fetus spirit has nothing to do with him. He didn't kill him. His good heart is taken for a donkey's liver. There's no point in being a good person. So, in this moment, I think it's important to recognize how they both view... There's things revealed in this spat between them where WuXiang is like, he doesn't know. He believes he's a good person. He believes he's a good person, and he doesn't know... And then they come in here, why people are mean to him. He's like, why is everybody so mean to me? He's like, why is he mean to me? I'm just trying to do good. And then Shelian's like, let's stop arguing. And then if they just stopped arguing, it wouldn't have gotten out that they were who they were. But Feng Shen is like, wow, does your general know what he's usually like? He had no reason to complain if people were suspicious of him. And Fu Yao, aka WuXiang, who cannot take a joke, he cannot... WuXiang is definitely a person that you can't press buttons with. You know, there are some people, like I have friends that you can tease and they get frustrated, but it's kind of like in a funny way. Like this girl I was friends with high school, she would constantly do things that you'd be like, come on, why'd you do that? Like, Baka, why'd you do that? And she'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But there was like, even though when she was complaining, there was a tone to her that was like, she was in on the joke. And she got it, and she was just kind of like yesing you to just kind of like be like, I know I did something stupid, whatever. But she was very, you know, it was funny. It was played off as a joke, and they got it's a joke. There are some people that do not take that well. You cannot joke with them about that. If you're like, oh, you goofed up, they're like, did I? And you're like, oh, well, yeah, okay. You know, they just can't take the joke. And WuXiang is one of those people. He cannot take the joke. And that's when they get into this big argument. He said it wasn't like you had any good intentions. You only wanted to show benevolence to those you can't stand so you can be pleased with yourself. You're satisfying yourself and waiting to watch others make a fool of themselves. Don't give me that good heart taken for a donkey liver. And don't think yourself a good person. Genuinely good people aren't like you. You've never been one. So meanwhile, Feng Shen thinks that WuXiang is not a good person and is the type to stir the pot to point out flaws. Which, you know, that would make a lot of sense because back with this whole thing with HEADPHONE when he was kidnapping Shelian, the part where the Manhua is now, WuXiang was like, well, did Shelian get kidnapped or did he go with HEADPHONE? Are we going to make Shelian the victim or is he really an accomplice? Like, he was trying to point it out, the flaws of it, to point out. I feel like WuXiang has definitely an inferiority complex and he believes that he's not as good as others. So he tries to put others down and reveal. He has I feel like he might have imposter syndrome too, where he just doesn't feel like he's worth being there. But he doesn't want to let that show, so he overcompensates by trying to bring others down. He wants to bring others down and point out how they are flawed like him and shouldn't be respected any more than him. And you know people like that in real life, right? It's a thing, right? And he says, this is your imagination. He says, whether or not it's nonsense, you know best. How would I not know you? And Wuxing's like, what right do you have to lecture me? Looking down on people from high up, careful you might fall and break a leg. Which is funny because Feng Xin is the one that broke his arm with the whole thing with Qi Rong back in the flashback. Funny that you say that, right? And then Feng Xin says, I'm stronger than you in everything. Do you not think no one knows of that shitty deed you've done? And this is the weird thing, because I'm like, what shitty deed? Because he says, yes, I admit it. How much stronger are you, taking yourself for the model of loyalty? You ditched the boss when the wife came along. The wife and the son became more important. Everyone's doing things for themselves. It's the self that's priority. Aren't you embarrassed hanging on to that old shitty deed over my head? So, okay, Wuxing has done something. He has done a quote-unquote shitty deed. We don't know what that is. Is it something to do with HUAQiang's promotion? Is it something to do with Xi Lian? We don't know. Is it something to do with the moment when he met HUAQiang? We don't know what the deed is. What is the deed? What is the deed? We don't know. I guess I should add that to this when we're done. I guess I'll add it to the list of things to not know about, like what was Wuxing's shitty deed. I guess I'll add it whenever we're done with this discussion. I'll put it up on the board. But yeah, and Feng Xin has been hanging it over his head. Feng Xin definitely seems like a person who would judge somebody, and once you do something bad, he doesn't hold a grudge, but he no longer trusts you. So Wuxing has done whatever this deed is, and since then, Feng Xin has not trusted him. And Wuxing's like, well, you're no better. You left Xi Lian. So it has something to do with Xi Lian, probably, because he compares it to what Feng Xin did to Xi Lian, which was leave him. The way they talks there makes it seem like once his wife came along. So it seems like Feng Xin, maybe once he decided to marry Zhanlan, that's when he left Xi Lian, because he's like, maybe when he found out she was pregnant, that's when he left. And he's like, I can't stay with Xi Lian when I have a wife and a kid on the way. So that's when he left. Which would make Wuxing seem suspicious, because Feng Xin's like, I know I left Xi Lian with my wife when I knew she was pregnant with her kid, but then shortly thereafter, she and the kid died. So were you responsible for that to like make me pay for abandoning Xi Lian? He's like, you're no better. So I see why the two are arguing and why they have beef with each other. But Xi Lian at this point is like, yeah, so cat's out of the bag, huh? And honestly, I'm amazed that Xi Lian's known this whole time. It kind of makes sense, though, because the whole thing with Fu Yao and Nan Feng, Xi Lian has never really... He's been concerned for them, but never overly concerned. And I feel like we've seen Xi Lian around any other person. He's like, oh, I gotta make sure you're safe. Oh, let me make sure you're safe. Are you okay? Whatever. And he's been like overly concerned about Pei Su, about Qi Ying, about Yin Yu. And so the fact that he was never really overly concerned with Fu Yao and Nan Feng suggests that, yeah, he knew all the time it was Feng Xin and Wuxing. They can take care of themselves. It all makes sense now. Everything makes sense. It all makes sense. I'm like, wow, I'm glad MXTX you put that out there now. And I love that Wuxing is so offended. He's like, how did you know? And Xi Lian's like, you guys could not have been more obvious. But he doesn't want to wound Wuxing's pride by telling him how obvious it was. He was like, I just knew. But it's like, everything. Once Xi Lian started naming the sloppy fake names, the way they behave and spoke, their never changing personalities, he's like, yeah, it was pretty easy to guess. And I'm like, not for all of us. Some of us had trouble confirming, right? And he says, you were only watching us play, acting quietly, right? He said chillingly, you've known who we were for a long time. And I feel like Wuxing feels betrayed by that, but like, oh, you thought that you were just going to watch us pretend and just get enjoyment out of it. I'm like, Wuxing, quit making the worst assumptions about everything, okay? Give Xi Lian the benefit of the doubt. Recognize that Xi Lian was trying to protect your ego. You tramp. I'm like, what are you doing? So, yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. So, on the plus side, we now know that WuXiang and Fu Yao have been there the whole time. Good. They've been watching over Shilian from afar. But it also says something that they could not admit, you know, how they betrayed Shilian by leaving him. So they had these clones come in like to kind of like try to make themselves look better. And it's like, ooh, and Shilian saw right through it. Which makes Shilian somewhat of an unreliable narrator. So there's that, because if Shilian's known this entire time and we, the audience, didn't, it makes Shilian a little bit of an unreliable narrator, which kind of goes along with WuXiang being like, you don't know, quit making assumptions. So the big question is, what is WuXiang hiding? What is he hiding from Shilian? I don't think he means any malice by it. I just think he wants to protect Shilian and doesn't want him to get hurt. But what is he hiding? What is Shilian not revealed to us yet that he's already known as the narrator this entire time? And why is WuXiang and Feng Shen really there? Is it just to look for the Fia Spirit and Zhanlan? But they had to have known that Shilian was coming up the mountain at some point, because that was his goal. So is there an ulterior motive? And does WuXiang know the ulterior motive and he's not happy about it? Are they who they say they are? Because people have been wearing a lot of masks and a lot of faces in this story. It's been pretty a big theme. So who is who they say they are? And I feel like this volume is going to have everything come out of the wash. And then we're going to have volume 7 and 8 to deal with that. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready. But we can't go back. We can't. We're already a wee bit in. So I hope you all enjoyed this week, this discussion and reaction. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. How you felt when you found out. Did you know all along? Here's the thing. Knowing now what we know now, I'm sure some of you figured this out a long time before I did. I'm sure. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did, and that's cool. I'm like, wow, it should have been very clear, but here we are. It's almost like my subconscious was wanting me to think it this entire time, but I was like, nah, couldn't be. Couldn't be. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'm going to update this a little bit and clean it up for next week, get it a little bit updated, and maybe thematically put some things together. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with chapters 175 to 179 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye!